One of the most important things in life is to understand the definition of terms so that when someone's talking to you, you get the gist. Today we're going to talk all about construction terms, building terms, the big fancy words that everybody on TV loves to use, and the kind of stuff you're going to hear right here on this channel and other YouTubers around the world who are explaining building technology. I don't want you to get overwhelmed. I don't want you to understand what they're saying when they say it and not get confused. Not understanding the definition of a term can really lead you down a really unhealthy path when it comes to you choosing what assemblies you're going to be building with, or even having a conversation with your contractor. You can be your own best contractor, and today we're going to give you some tools to help you do that. The first term we're going to deal with is deflection. Now, in the world of contracting, we all have flooring. Now, if you're slab on grade, deflection is not part of your vocabulary. But if you have a wood house with a wood frame, then you've got to deal with deflection. Deflection is basically put this. It's defined by downward force causing things to move. Okay? So that's the static position. This is when you put your weight on it. That's deflection. The reason that's really important is because there are a lot of different building materials we're using today that do not perform well under deflection. Example for tile, okay? Hardwood floors, anything that's fastened to your floor, the more deflection you have, the longer it's in that environment with deflection and coming and going, the weaker and weaker it all gets, the more it starts to fall apart, the squeakier the floor gets, the more grout cracks in your tile. So understanding that deflection is that, and then when you're learning how to combat deflection, you can help choose what's the best building material for you and your house. The next term we're going to deal with is expansion. Now, you've all heard expansion and contraction. They're not the same thing. They're two different things, so I'm going to break them down one at a time. Expansion is when you're in a static state, normal weather conditions, normal temperatures, and you look like this, right? But then humidity hits, and that happens. That's expansion. Now, the reason we are concerned about expansion in construction technology is different building materials expand at different rates depending on the level of humidity you're dealing with. So drywall versus softwood lumber, hardwood lumber versus stone or tile, all expand at different rates in the same environment. That's really key because if we build a house out of wood and then we're putting materials in that house that expand at different rates, then we've got to make sure that we can manage that so that our assemblies don't fall apart. Now, in most situations in homes, we regulate the temperature year-round and we don't have an issue. But in construction technology, the reason we worry about it is because there's always that 1 or 2 days a year, every few years, where we're going to get a storm and we're going to lose power, which means we lose the ability to regulate the environment we're living in. And in those situations, we want to have a house that's built with enough technology that it doesn't get destroyed because of the variation in temperature and humidity. Quick example. I have a straight ruler here. It's 6 feet long, I got it clamped at the other end, and I'm going to move the ruler 1/4 of an inch, and this is what expansion looks like. This kind of demonstrates if you have a house in southern, let's say down in Florida or South Carolina, and it's humid and the power goes out and you lose air conditioning, and everything grows 1/4 of an inch. That's what happens to your flooring, okay? That's crazy. That's 1/4 inch and the effect of it, all right? That's expansion, and that's why when you're choosing building materials, you might want to pick a natural material like a hardwood for flooring, because if it expands because it gets wet, it'll also contract again when it dries out. Products like man-made products like laminate flooring, they're put together with powder and adhesives, and when they expand, they don't contract again. So something like that could be devastating if you have a cheap floor in a house in that environment. Something to consider. Now, contraction is really the exact opposite. This is what happens when you have an environment where the moisture is completely removed from a situation and all of the materials shrink. So you go from this to this. There are two things that can cause contraction. One of the major elements with contraction is temperature. The other one is moisture. Now, we talked about how moisture can grow and shrink materials, which is why I'm a big believer in using solid wood materials like baseboards, casings, and trims, because wood can expand and contract, and if you use a good quality caulking, you won't see any damage in your finishes. One of the things we have in the building materials nowadays is called MDF, medium density fiber. This is the dust and the glue. If it expands, it cannot contract again. which means all you end up with is a bunch of cracks and joints everywhere you look because it gets destroyed. Now, contraction is also very popular with ceramic tile. One of the most difficult products we've installed in homes in the last 40 years is tile, because we have wood and then tile with thin set, and they're both expanding and contracting at different rates for different reasons. So wood can be wet and cold and it'll still grow, where if the tile gets wet and cold, it's doing different movement at different times. And so it can actually delaminate, which is the next word we need to understand. Delamination is when two materials that are bonded together lose that bond. Okay, you'll see this all the time on tile floors. The tiles will just pop right up. The grout will crack around it and it'll have separated. That's delamination. Now, in most construction situations, delamination only occurs if somebody installed tile when it was cold and didn't let it warm up, or the cement got too dry when they were applying it, okay? Or if the surface they were bonding the tile to was filthy dirty. These are all tile fails, and they're all related to the same thing, delamination. The next two major things you're going to hear about are related to the structure of the house. We're talking about load bearing and point load. And we're just going to pop over to a different part of the studio now, and we'll show you good examples of that. So when it comes to structure, there's really two major issues. Load bearing, which is really common. So all of the foundation walls in the house are load bearing because the walls are built on top of the foundation, right? And then what we have here is we have a beam all the way across to here, and everything on top of that beam, this is bearing that load, sitting on top of that beam's shoulders, okay? That's load bearing. And then when it gets to this pipe, this post here, this is what we call a point load. All of that load is transferred to one point in the foundation, in the ground, all right? And generally when you're going to get a point load, before they even pour the floor, they have to excavate and they make a box and they put rebar and they pour 8 inches of concrete, 2 by 2 foot feet, all right? And they set that in there, let that cure, it has to be inspected. Then they can put their post, then they can backfill and pour the floor. This kind of construction technology, although it's very basic, is vitally important not to mess with without getting a structural engineer involved, all right? The next word we hear about all the time, is crown up. Make sure the crown's up. Here's the deal. If you have wood, inevitably it's going to have a curve to it. It's like a flat rainbow, okay? And they always want to put wood on a floor crown up. So then when you put weight on it, the deflection flattens it out. Does that make sense? No weight, deflection flattens it out, all right? Now if you're building a wall and your crown is out, it means the crown is always coming in the same direction into the room. So when you put your drywall on, all of those joints, all of those screws are following the same curve, and there's no fight, there's no war popping anything off the wall. So here, take a look at these two pieces of 2x4. They both have the same crown. They look like they're perfectly straight. But if you reverse the crown, you'll see how different they are, okay? Now, if you build a wall, one crown out, one crown in, one crown out, one crown in, and you try to put drywall on that wall with this kind of action going on, I'm going to guarantee you everything's going to be popping off that wall for years. Now, I'm guilty of this all the time because I grew up in Canada, and where I grew up, if this was used to determine the value of something, we called it level, because this is called a level. It's called slang. Everybody got upset at me in the early days because this is level, this is plumb. Okay? Level with a level, plumb with a level. I'm not sure, but I guess when you're holding it up like this and you say level, people get offended because that doesn't mean level, it means plumb. Anyway, next. Square. Level, plumb, square, flush. 4 words you got to know as a builder. Square means it's exactly 90 degrees. All right? Perfect contact, all 3 points. That's square. Flush means that it makes contact at all the points. It can be flush and out of level or out of plumb, but flush just means it makes contact. Okay? So that's the difference. Level, plumb, flush, and square. Piece of cake. The next term we're going to deal with is called permeable, okay? Now, permeable is the exact opposite of waterproof. right? Now waterproof, there are only two materials in the world that are actually waterproof. It's glass and metal, like steel, okay? Permeable, it's a rating, it's a scale. Kind of like smart. There's a lot of different kinds of smart. There's a lot of different kinds of permeable. Whether something's considered to be a vapor barrier or non-permeable really has to do with where they end up on the permeable scale, all right? You can be really smart and still not be a genius, right? So in certain products, they consider to be a vapor barrier if they meet a certain threshold of permeability. So whenever you're reading technical data on a product, if it says non-permeable, it means it meets this technical threshold to be a vapor barrier. This product right here, for instance, the DMX 2-in-1, is a non-permeable underlayment and meets the technical specs to be a vapor barrier, so you can put it on concrete and put your flooring right on top. So lately we've been just blown away with the video and picture submissions we've been getting on our Instagram and Facebook. You guys have been sending us a lot of pictures and showing us what you've been up to, you know, as a result of following our videos, and it's mind-boggling. So we decided that we would do a little something that might be more inspirational. Like, I get a lot of inspiration from watching how you guys work and how awesome the work is that you're doing. Now more than ever, I believe it. You know, homeowners are their best contractors. But I want everybody else to see it too. So we're gonna start a brand new segment, and it's called Shout Out. And the idea here is we're just gonna go and share some of these great success stories with the audience, and you never know, you might be the next, okay? So today we're doing a shout out to Cameron. Cameron, you did a great job on your DIY pantry build. Awesome work, buddy. And you know, like, guys, when you're sending in these pictures, let us know where you live. Don't be afraid to give the hometown a shout out too, all right? Cheers, well done. Well, let's get back to the video. The permeable scale basically is related to if something was exposed to high levels of moisture, how long would it take until that moisture transferred through the material to the other side, right? If you've ever had a plastic jug and you put something like chicken broth in it and you left it in the fridge for a month, you'd realize plastic is actually permeable. It gets really nasty and it leaks through the jar over time and makes a big stain in the shelf. Some things you learn the hard way. We have relative humidity, right? And that's all relative to what kind of humidity you like. But for the most part, building materials at 60% or 50% humidity is really good. It means there's not enough moisture in there that it's going to promote the growth of mold that's naturally occurring in wood. As long as you can keep the internal humidity below that level inside the house, you're going to be nice and comfortable. And if it gets out of control, consider buying a dehumidifier or upping your air conditioning in the summertime. Waterproofing is a term that we hear a lot about, generally speaking with bathrooms, okay? Now the biggest problem with bathrooms is the fact that we've got so much moisture, but we got two kinds of moisture. One is water and one is water vapor. So there's water in the liquid form and there's water in gas form. Now if something is waterproof, it means it's water in the liquid form proof. It means if you pour water on it, it'll not let the water get through. But not every material that's waterproof is also vapor proof. Okay, that's the biggest distinction. So if you're going to be building a bathroom that's going to get a lot of action, like you've got a lot of people in the home and only one shower, or if you're going to be building a steam shower where you're enclosing all that steam and trapping it, you can't just have waterproof, you've got to have vapor proof, which means it'll withstand even the water in the form of a gas from penetrating through that product. That's a huge distinction. The other thing is most people have a roof on their house. Those houses are not waterproof. That's a water diversion system. That simply means that working together with gravity, water will come in contact with that roof and it'll run off the roof. If the water is forced in the opposite direction, it will come into the house. Now, people in the north know that you have a good water diversion system, but if you get ice buildup on your roof and then it gets thaws and freezes and thaws and freezes, it can actually crawl up underneath your shingles. And then one day when it's warm enough outside, the ice will melt and all that water will rain inside your home. Yeah, there's a big difference between waterproof and a diversion system. Now, most homes on the outside are not waterproof, they're weatherproof. That's what I call it. It's part of the diversion system. So the roof diverts water, but the sides of your house should also be a weatherproofing system. You should be able to divert water that gets past the facade, the siding, the shingles, the soffit and the fascia, behind the brick, whatever it is that's wrapping around your house. You should have a weatherproofing layer there as well, because any water in the form of liquid can travel really fast and do a lot of damage and get trapped in behind all those surfaces. So have your house wrapped in like a Tyvek or a Typar, something that allows water to be diverted down the side and follow gravity right to the foundation. But those systems are also permeable, so they will allow water vapor to pass through, because you don't want to seal up your house so tight that water can't escape. One of the biggest issues we deal with in homes is we make them so sealed up that just going to sleep at night can increase the amount of vapor in the room from breathing. If you don't believe me, go get a tent, go camping with your significant other in a small little pep tent and see how humid it is in the morning. That moisture didn't come through the ground sheet. It came from breathing in that sealed up tent overnight. That's called water vapor, and it comes from breathing, from running the shower, from cooking, lots of different sources of it, and you've got to have a way to get that out of the house. So don't seal it up so tight that you destroy your investment. Cheers. I hope you learned some stuff today. This should give you enough information that you can watch most shows out there or have a conversation with a contractor and feel like you at least know what they're talking about to some degree, so they can't just pull the wool over your eyes with all their fancy terminology, right? Here at Home RenoVision DIY, we're here to help. Consider joining a membership program. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We're making a ton of great videos this year to help you guys navigate what should be a very interesting year in the world of renovation and building and remodeling. We're going to do a lot of comparison product testing and a lot of different videos to help you navigate the supply chain issues that are going on. Consider joining the program. Watch this video right here and find out what we can do to help you in the future.